Hey, monkey. I'm standing on the edge of Mulaipal Theertham, which is the main source for sadhus who live on Arunachala. During Bhagavan's day, this was the main water supply for just about everyone who lived here. One reason he had to move out of Virupaksha cave in summer was because there was insufficient water for Bhagavan and all his devotees. They would come here for their baths, they would take water, but eventually the water needs of Virupaksha cave became too much, and so Bhagavan moved to a small cave which is quite close to here, where it was quite easy to access the water in this tank. Now this tank has undergone several major modifications, most of which have been caused by avalanches down the years. In Bhagavan's day he said there was a sheer back wall, now it's stepped and terraced, and he said kids would come here and dare each other to jump or dive off the top into the water, which right now would be a 30-foot drop, and if it wasn't vertical you'd have to take an almighty run to get to the water. But he said that's how the kids dared each other and amused themselves in the first decade of the last century. Now a friend of mine who was an Australian sadhu here for many years, he was the last person to do the repairs here. He told me that he came to Tiruvannamalai, or came to India, as a result of seeing The Razor's Edge in a movie in Melbourne in the 1950s. Up till that point, I think he was either studying architecture or he was a professional architect. And he said, I just watched this film about a man going to India and being transformed by a Swami. And he said, I left the cinema in tears, and after that I just booked my ticket for India. First of all, he went to Sri Lanka, where he became a devotee of a man called Yoga Swami, and then later he was sent to live on the slopes of Arunachala, and that in fact is the story of The Razor's Edge, the first movie he saw in Australia of Ramana attracting a Western devotee. So he lived quite close to here. He had his own cave which he remodeled. He was a good architect and builder, so he had a rather deluxe cave about 5 minutes from here. And in the 1980s, when a severe storm caused the whole of this tank to collapse, he was put in charge of renovations. He did all the fundraising, he did all the building, and he engineered it rather nicely so that the drinking water, the bathing water, the clothes washing all keep separate, and that when people come here and have a bath or wash their clothes, the water doesn't run back into the tank. I'm standing close to Mulaipal Theertham, next to the rock which is behind me that contains the mango tree cave that Bhagavan lived in summer in the first decade of the last century. When Virupaksha cave got too hot, or when there was no available water there, Bhagavan would come over here and spend some of the summer. The cave was blasted by a couple of brothers who lived in town. They knew that Bhagavan needed a place closer to the water supply, so they made a little cave for him in this rock here. Over the succeeding decades, this particular cave has been added to by a whole succession of sadhus who've built room after room after room in front of it, and now there are probably 20-25 meters of connected rooms that you walk in and have to pass through before you see the original cave at the back. I'm now standing outside the front entrance of Mango Tree Cave. Behind me, in this kind of empty spot over here, is where the original mango tree used to be. You can see it on old photos up till about the 1980s, and then finally there was a big storm and the whole thing fell over. What's particularly interesting about this spot I'm standing on now is that somewhere within about 10 feet of me here was where Bhagavan had his photo taken in 1901 when he was 21 years of age, and that's the oldest available photo of Bhagavan in existence. He's sitting cross-legged, he looks very young, he has a big mane of black hair, and he looks, to my mind, completely unlike any other photo that exists in the succeeding years. He did have his photo taken at least twice before that, but there is no available copy. There is a group photo taken at his school, Scott's Middle School, in which there are several hundred rather blurry boys, and no one has quite worked out which one might be Bhagavan, or even if he went to school that day. And Bhagavan also said that he was called from school one day to have a family portrait taken, and that it wasn't a very good one, because he at some point made this kind of gesture to knock a fly off his face, and that came out blurry on the photo. B.V. Narasimhaswamy, who made the first biography of him in 1930s, went to all of his relatives who were still alive and tried to find copies of this schoolboy photo, but no one had kept it, and we have to assume at this distance in time it doesn't exist, and that this one photo taken outside here in 1901 is going to remain the oldest known photo.